Washington, D.C., the great and powerful Oz, has now just been reduced to a meme. The way they've been behaving lately reminds me exactly of this scene from The Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. It's all just smoke and mirrors. The real power now lies with the states. If something is going to change in your life, for better or worse, it's going to be at the state level. Because DC can do nothing without the collusion of the people in the states. Now, there's a topic that has been floating around on YouTube and other places on the web that has caused people in my audience to experience a great deal of fear and angst. And in today's video, I'm going to try to set everyone's hearts and minds at peace. DC is toothless. I don't care how many HR, this, that, or the others they decide to put forth or pronounce or pass. There's nothing they can do without the collusion of the states. Now, on the left here, I've gone to Google Earth Pro, and I've outlined about 10 states in the Southeast. And I would like you to, for just a moment, think about all of the military bases that reside in these 10 states. Bragg, Campbell, Jackson, Benning, Bliss, Hood, Leonard Wood, Polk. Those are just all Army bases. And there's a ton of Air Force bases, Mayport Naval Base. Why does that matter? Well, for those of you who don't know what HR 127 is, it's some ridiculous pronouncement about laws or regulations regarding the handling of firearms. Unenforceable. It's unenforceable because they don't have a mechanism to enforce it. Because to enforce it, you would need a very, very large group of people with the logistics at the level of the U.S. military. And they don't have the cooperation of the U.S. military. I'm sure many people are taking issue with that. I would like to explain to you why I believe that. And those of you out there in my audience who are veterans, you'll be able to agree 100% with what I'm about to say, because I've been around enough veterans to know. When you are a veteran, when you are in the military, either active duty, just got off duty, it's a job. Sometimes it's some very long days. But your job is your job. And your home life is your home life. You do your job so that you can have a peaceful home life. When you're off duty, you can't get out of uniform fast enough. You can't get your civvies on fast enough. All you want to do is just get back to normal life. Now, if anything would interfere with that, you would do everything in your power to keep that from happening. Your job is your job, and your home life is your home life. And it doesn't matter whether you're an O7 Brigadier General or an E2 private. That is just the way it is in the military. Those of you who are civilians have nothing to fear. It will be a cold day in hell that anyone in either police forces or military forces collude with Washington, D.C. to interfere with our lives at home. Deployments are bad enough. but that's understandable to some extent. You deal with it and you go forward, knowing you have a family that has your back, knowing that you've got loved ones at home that you're going to come home to, and you're going to sit on the couch in your comfy clothes and you're going to watch Netflix or Hulu or whatever else at some point, and you're going to forget about it. This idea that anyone believes that because of HR, this, that, or the other, some military force of any kind, whether it be police or actual active, would go into a neighborhood with their friends and neighbors there and begin enforce. You're out of your mind. This is all you want to do. This is all you want to do. You want your life to be your life and your job to be your job. Heaven help anyone that comes between you and your loved ones, or attempts in any way to interfere with that thing you work so hard for. The military, the police, especially in the states that I had outlined, they're not giant fans anyway right now of those in DC. There is no way I can speak with virtual certainty for the people of Florida for sure that those in the military down here are ever going to even consider enforcing something so ridiculous. Being in the military is hard enough. Sometimes the price is too high. You see, this is what people just don't get. They think the military are these robots that fly black helicopters that just do as they're, programmed to do, and it's like it is in the movies. It ain't like that. It's one of the things that actually makes Florida great. I know I harp on it a lot, but there is so much military down here. So many former military, active military. They're everywhere. They are our friends and neighbors. It's actually a strange day if you don't see somebody in uniform. If you don't hear some military asset going overhead. That's more abnormal, especially up in Jacksonville. They got NASJAX up there. They got Mayport up there. There's Camp Blanding where they do special forces training. It's everywhere. But it gives you a great insight into military life, that these men and women are not our enemies. They are our friends and our families. And once again, look at the area that I have outlined and think of all of the assets. Think of all of the people responsible for those assets. Now remember what happened in the election. How many of these people do you think are really going to collude with DC to enforce something so ridiculous? I could have probably included most of southern Indiana, Ohio, a good chunk of Missouri in this, but you get the idea. This is classically what is known as the South. And the reason I did it this way is because it's not just Florida. It's not just Florida that's like this. There's no way. They can write down as many little pieces of HR, blah, 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 all they want all day long. And they can stand up and they can have their little votes in DC and say, okay, this is this is that, this is the other. Until you have the collusion of the people in the states to enforce it, it's toothless and it's useless. And one final thing. You don't do what you're supposed to do in the military because you live in fear of some NJP or Article 15 or court-martial. You do what you do because your training is the easiest way to do it, and that's the way everyone else is doing it. So when there's a Navy way, when there's an Army way, when there's an Air Force way, there's a reason people do that. It's because we're taking care of each other. I don't have to look over my shoulder to know that the guys in my unit are going to be doing things A, B, C, or XYZ way, because that's how we all do it. It's the way that you take care of each other. And that's really one of those hidden things about the military you wouldn't know unless you've been in the military. That you don't do it out of because you think you're going to, be punished in some way or there's going to be some sanction. You follow your training and you do what's right for the group, because that's what gets you home. Your goal in the military is to have as many forgettable days on duty as possible. Let me say that again. Your goal is to have as many forgettable days, meaning days where nothing strange happened, as possible. And like I said, that applies to E1, E2, E3, and 05, 06, 07, 08. People think that the military just follows orders. They do to an extent, up and to the point that doesn't interfere with home life. Meaning that if you're given orders that you have to stay late or whatever, of course, that's fine. But your job is not going to be done at your residence or in your neighborhoods. Posse comitatus doesn't even need to be a thing for it to be a thing. There would be no collusion. And that's just good people doing the right thing. DC requires you to believe the man behind the curtain really is the great and powerful Oz. If we in the States stop believing that, everything will change. We've shown examples of this in Florida, but it's starting to bleed over into other states. They're like, hey, we can just say no. We can just say no and call their bluff. There's not just some giant army of 25 million robots stationed just outside DC that they can launch into any state. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. There's nothing to fear. If you have something to fear, it'll be from your friends and neighbors. That's a whole different problem. If you truly think that you're living in an area where you have, well, I guess you wouldn't call them friends, but if you have neighbors and people that live around you that you don't trust, that don't have your back and you don't have theirs, that's a bigger, DC is not the problem then. DC will take advantage of that, but the problems get fixed at home. The problems get fixed at home. And I guess I will leave it there. That's my opinion on the whole thing. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next time.